Hi everybody, and welcome to my channel, A Magical Life with Ayla. I'm Ayla Hillel, and today we are going to be talking about the magical mundane. So let's get started. So in the past several months, what we've been going over is what I like to call magical concepts. Things that we need to do and practices that we need to have in order to raise our vibrations. The higher our vibration, the more powerful our magic is. Today is one of those ideas. I don't know if I would really call it a concept, but it's an idea that if you have an understanding of, it's one more of those things that sort of gives you power over your life. So in the past videos, what I've done is, here's what you need to do to raise your vibration, and here are some practices. I'm not really sure that there's a practice that goes along with this besides just what I would call divine awareness. If you can hold in your mind all the time that every physical thing on this realm is made out of the divine energy, the DNA of God, I like to call it God goo, then you understand how truly divine this third dimensional realm is. Because so many times we come here and we think, oh, this is just the third dimension, this is just life. We want to hurry up and get through this so that we can get back to the other side. I don't necessarily think that that's the proper perspective. You're going to have whatever perspective you have, but I think if you're really looking for a powerful perspective, the magical mundane is what I call it, is a perspective, and there's no practice really besides just taking a moment and having some awareness and coming into that place in that moment where your life is divine. Everything that happens to you was orchestrated by you when you came here. So the magical mundane says that every moment of every hour of every day of every week of every year is sacred. So even if you're going through something uncomfortable, even if you're going through something painful, it's so hard to extract ourselves out of that pain and that difficulty, to try on a different perspective and to see that we did write down our life before we came here. We orchestrated all of this before we came here. And we knew what we were doing on the other side when we wrote down this beautiful, amazing, incredible life plan. We knew what we were doing. We knew what we wanted to accomplish. We knew what we wanted to experience. We knew what the byproducts of lessons were going to be. We knew everything about what we were trying to get done in this lifetime when we wrote it down. So awareness, or mindfulness, as a lot of people call it, could be a good practice for this idea to just throughout your day take a moment and just become aware, become mindful that You are in control of your life. You wrote this life plan down, and you are brilliant. You were brilliant then when you wrote it down, and you are brilliant now. And this uncomfortable, this unhappy thing is part of life on this realm, is part of divine, sacred life on this realm. I think that this concept is important because when we are trying to develop our magic, we become aware of a lot of things, like we don't let go. We're embroiled in our past. We're embroiled in a hurt that happened years ago, and we don't know how to let go of that. We're trying to understand how to come into an understanding of our divine self. All of those concepts that we've talked about in the past month. This stuff is really difficult. And the magical mundane, what that does for us is it says to us, there is no difference in your, what would we call it, day-to-day life, and when something truly magical happens. We have a tendency to separate those things out. We have a tendency to say, oh, I worked my magic for this thing and that happened. And then you're in the magic of that moment. But what about the magic of all the other moments of your life? They are magical as well. And it helps us not to separate those two things out, having a magical moment and having a mundane life. Lots of times I have this feeling, because I spend my days off talking to you all, working on my website, leading rituals, talking to people about healing. And so I spend my days off in this incredibly magical place. And then I go to my third dimensional job. And it took me a while. This has been years ago, but it took me a while to understand that the moments that happen inside of that job are as sacred and magical as the moments when I'm here at home working on my creative projects, talking to my students and to my clients, and in that overtly magical place. There is no difference. There is no difference in my mundane life and my magical life. And so I started using the phrase, and I'd like to say I coined this phrase, but every single time I think I invented something, I read it in a book, or somebody says, oh, that teacher's been using that phrase for years. But I started using the phrase, whether I invented it or not is not important, the magical mundane. And in my mind, what this means to me is that my life is sacred. My life is sacred. Whether I'm at work, whether I'm dealing with a difficult situation in my life is sacred all the time. It's magical all the time. And I take moments throughout the day to kind of step back when something difficult is happening, to kind of step back and go, that's odd. Because I really truly believe that every odd, uncomfortable, painful thing that happens to me is leading me to that magical place where I want to be. I have constantly got what I call magical projects going. So I'm working my magic to move myself into the places that I want to be. And sometimes along the way, things will happen that is not so comfortable, or looks like I'm off path from where I want to go. And when this happens, I take a moment. I take that moment of awareness. I take that moment of, really stepping back and having the mindfulness to say, okay, wait a minute. where in our mortal life, surrounded by all of our drama and our negativity, when that thing happened, we would be upset and angry and confused because it would look like we were off path. In our magical lives, we know that there's a very good chance that that thing is taking us where we want to be. And I'll give you an example of this. So I write books, and I want to do this for a living. I want to do this for my life. I've been writing my whole life. I started writing when I was 14, but never really cared about getting published until just in the last year. I started writing a story that I had been carrying around in my heart for about 3 years on May 12th of 2021. And because I had this story inside of me for so long, it took me 4 months to write it. I knew exactly the entire plot. I knew all the plot twists. I knew all the characters. I knew them intimately. So this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to write. I want to be a writer. I giggle sometimes because my self-talk is beloved storyteller, Ayla Halal. That is that's what I use to set the vibration for where I want to go with my writing. And that's the self-talk that I use. So in the meantime, because I've only been writing for a year, I only have one book published. In the meantime, I'm working what some might call a mundane job. Okay. I work in a grocery store. I'm what they call a floor clerk, which is the very bottom of the totem pole of people who work at the grocery store. So this is a very busy work. It could be very distracting, but the magical aspect of that job for me is that I get to work with people. This is what I've done in my magical life for the past 25 years. I've worked with people. So some of that job is difficult and some of it is delightful, because people can be difficult and they can be delightful. So I take that job as a magical step along the way to where my heart desires, where my heart truly wants to be. Now, in the past, I have gotten distracted by things like this. It's like, I think I've always wanted to be an author. The difference between a writer and an author is a writer writes, period. No matter what you do with that writing, you write. I've been a writer my whole life. I've only been an author since January 1st of 2022. So that was, 6 months ago? But it's so easy to get tangled up in the distractions of mundane life if you don't understand that mundane life sometimes takes us into those magical places. So in the meantime, while I'm getting published, I'm waiting to be noticed, I'm putting myself out there to the world, I'm working a job. And that job allows me to be comfortable in my life while I'm going on to this magical project, this magical area where I want to be. So it's very important that we see what is happening to us and we see it as part of my magical life, my magical process. Working a job is part of my magical process. It's part of my magical life. It's leading me to the outcome that I am working in my magic, that I'm desiring in my magic. In the past, what I started to say earlier, in the past, I would get distracted by this job. This job took me 2 months to get used to because it is so physical. I've never had such a physical job. It took me a while to get used to it. And I would get distracted. I would start a new job and there was a bunch of stuff to learn, and magic kind of fell by the wayside. And my entire thought process became consumed with learning that job. And I would forget about what I was working in my magic, because that job, way back then, was separate. That mundane life was separate from my magical life. So through continuing to practice, continuing to work with the concepts, continuing to be mindful and aware that everything is happening to me is divine. Everything that is happening to me is magical. Everything that happens to me is taking me on my path to where I want to be. Now, this was a while coming for me. So if you don't feel it right away, if you listen to this video and you think, yeah, okay, I understand what she's saying and I can work on that, and you start working on it, you go down the path of mindfulness and awareness and reminding yourself that, going to work is magical and paying your bills is magical and dealing with difficult children is magical, or other family members, it's all magical. You remind yourself of this and you're just not feeling it. That's okay, because you're not going to feel it right away. Everything that I teach, so often I've had students come back to me and go, when I was teaching pivoting, there were students who would come back to me and say, when I try to pivot, I feel funny. Yeah, I know. And mindfulness and awareness is going to do the same thing to you, because we are so used to looking around in our life and being like, okay, this is it. This is all there is to the physical world, right? This is it. I have my spiritual life and I have my physical life, and the twain shall never meet. That is not true. Your physical is magical and your magic is physical. And it's all one piece of this great, big, huge, beautiful puzzle that is you. So the purpose of this, I don't even really know. I'm sure that many of you are going to listen to this video and be like, mindfulness awareness is a concept. It is. So, okay, that works for me too. It does take a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice to get to that place where you have some peace when things happen, because everything's working together to bring about your magic. So this is going to be a very short video for today. This is really all I have to say. Now, this afternoon, I am going to make another video with my friend Brittany of Sacred Temple Healing, and she has her little studio here in Medford. And so if you need to do some yoga, if you need some energy work, get a hold of her, sacredtemplehealing.com. And we are going to make a video about yoga, and Brittany is going to break it down for you, that your yoga practice, your healing yoga practice, does not need to be a long, drawn-out, difficult thing that you are unable to do with your physical ability at the moment. That we can actually begin using yoga. The word yoga actually means unity. And so what we want to do is we want to use yoga to bring us into union with the divine, to bring our physical body into union with our spirit and bring the whole thing into union with the divine. Okay? And it helps us to have some fitness as well. So on my website, amagicallifewithayla.com, you're going to notice up on the right the little buttons at the very top, and one of them says magic. And if you look at that, you will notice that, click on magic, you will notice that there's a little heading that says, before you cast a spell. Now, before you cast a spell, for me, we're going to talk about protecting yourself when you do magic, protecting yourself when you do divination. We're going to talk about all that later. But really, what this section of my website, before you cast a spell, is about getting well. You know, I said this in the last video, how powerful you are as a human being. You are an aspect of the divine, so you have all rights and privileges that the divine has. But wouldn't you like to have 100% of your magical potential? So Brittany's going to help us get started on that. We're going to make this video that even if you have physical constraints, restraints, however you want to say that keep you from doing a lot of complicated yoga, you'll be able to do these postures, and you'll be able to do them for as many minutes for each one of them. So your yoga practice could be very short or it could be very long. And this is going to begin to bring you into a place of healing. Okay. So we're going to do that this afternoon. Today is Friday. We're going to do that this afternoon, and I'll probably have that video up tomorrow for you. So hang in for that. And that is really all I have to say today. I love you, and blessed be.